Our theme today here in Free Friday is truth and love, the two wings of the heart. Now, when this was given to me, I went into a state of shock and revelation. And we've talked about it. We've been with it now for probably over 10 years around this process of balancing and aligning. And so what I thought would be good today is if we could just really take a look at the span of what we've learned. As with anything that you study, you get more intimate layers, meanings, and connections. Now, not only am I in my projectional, you have all that you bring to the party and all the insights and awarenesses that you have brought into this process of balance, of truth and love. So we're just going to join in this dynamic energetic, taking a nice big breath, allowing yourself to open and ground. Feel the energy moving all the way down the spine. Another big breath, open and grounding all the way through the hips, all the way down through the bottoms of your feet. So we get a really nice, strong anchor here. When we're grounded, things assimilate. We integrate and remember much easier than when we're not. And so that take an extra little touch here, breathing right into our lower tummy. And just drop an anchor, right? Just feeling that energy coming all the way down, right into center of earth. Beautiful. There has always been in me a desire to teach in a progressive means, meaning that I didn't take one thing and develop it exclusively and become known as the inner child or the goddess teacher. I wasn't made for that kind of consistency. So what I noticed is that there would be this big download, right? And we lived in Hawaii, and maybe we're talking even before internet, right? You pretty over here, pretty isolated if you're just in your own little worlds. And so that I would get this inspiration, like the power of the inner child, and I would work it and develop it. We'd make a workshop about it. And it's like, and then I would go to the mainland and notice that everybody was talking about it. It was like, this isn't new, but all of us had been developing it as if there was a university and all these different people had signed up to it, got the programs and took it to where it was that they needed to go with it. At that point, often for me, once it is that I'd assimilated it and worked with it, I'd be ready to move on. And I was always grateful for those who took that university kind of download time to write books and to establish foundations and to make a teaching platform available for that particular layer of knowing. Our heart totally goes out to the level of discipline and connection that is necessary to put that about. When we came to the instruction, right? Because again, these are downloads so that you're standing there, you're going, okay, what's next? What are we teaching? What are we doing here? We would be out every 6 months with a kind of a varied theme following a thread, but it would shift and change as we grew along. And I hear the big space. It's time to teach from the heart. This is about the time when we'd heard about heart math and various kinds of means of approaching the strength of the heart. What was unusual for me was when I came into the level of heart training, I realized I knew nothing. It's humbling. I said this in one of my first openings here in Oahu when we started to teach. It was like, he said, but Nancy, you've been teaching the heart for years and years and years. And I went, that's true, but I know nothing. What I had realized was the sense that the heart was always held sacred, but protected, something that would break easily, something that we had to be careful around. Or we'd have this universal element of heart, loving all equally, with the sense that some part of our nature was usually not being penetrated to the degree that we needed to. That's where the inner child work came in. So that what I noticed on an energetic level for the school that I was standing in is that there was the principle of the heart, the universal heart. We will be compassionate. We will live in this wonderful illumination and light and connections. All these beautiful principles that were emanating from the throat chakra. And then we would have our interpretation of what that was in the will. And I would hear tremendous amount of feelings of comparing, as if this depth of unworthiness kind of surfaced. I heard it everywhere, that people did not feel worthy. Confused me. Worthy of what? That when we penetrated it, there was a sense that there was definitely a core of shame, that growing up in patriarchal society, very hard to be immune to that one, right? But so that here was the space of our personal self yearning, wanting to connect, and connecting into a principle. And so then we came with this very loud noise around perfectionisms and needing to be perfect, to get it right, to get the right alignment, the right everything's. So that when I looked at this, I went, these two energies are the support of the heart. Where is the heart? So I listened, and the teachings came forth. That what was given was there are two wings in the heart. Two wings. Truth and love. That for us to be balanced, for us to be able to have a sense that we can live congruently within ourselves as spirit, human and deep and connected and celebrating as much as we can in our humanness. They need to be balanced in order to fly. You take one wing away and the other suffers. So then in defining this dynamic of two wings, we look to love, and I recognize that love was a space. It's something I felt when I came in the room. And when somebody would tell me they love me, but if I didn't feel it in my body, I got a little suspicious, like, I wonder what they want, right? That kind of thing. There was just this sense that this feeling of spaciousness and how much space I had in my consciousness at any given time measured my sense of love, of a sense of warmth, of a sense of connectedness. That when we would be in this power of love, we would feel the sense of expansion. We would sense this deeper connection to our own personal sense of self. How much space do you get? Shame, you don't get much space. In a feeling of expansion, when we walk outside, we come into nature, we walk by the ocean, we get a tremendous feeling of spaciousness in our awareness. the vibratory essence within this space is love. That's why you'll get these statements, love is all there is, because it's right at the core of the vibrational powers that allow us to feel expanded, connected, warm. Then when we were asked to learn this, we were first had to learn when it was we were not having much space in our life, how much was available. We addressed it as open, closed, warm, cold, hard, soft, because it was so hard to track this piece, because the content of why I thought I was the way I was became sometimes more important or louder than the actual space itself. So this deep sense of spacious awareness, this warmth, this love, this sense of expansion, that allows us to rest into our own nature. That it's half an equation. So for my sense of it, when I was starting to introduce this, it seemed that there were certain people who kind of innately were more comfortable with that love, expansion, warmth. There were certain qualities that I would notice that would be in people who had that sense that all they wanted was love. They wanted to feel that spacious. They wanted to feel good. They wanted to always be in a good mood. There was a sense in it that a tremendous level of fear of conflict that could create what we called love bubbles, where that desire to feel good started cutting you off from anything in you that you felt took that love away. Now, where are we? Living in a house divided. And this is where we saw a lot. And we saw this a lot in some of the different kind of spiritual movements, where we're up here, we're all love and light and wonderful. And down here, we're afraid and protective and got to watch out. And, there's going to be out there, so that the base of the person and our will would be fear-based. And then above, we'd be able to just kind of escape into this love and light club. I was probably one of the chief members of the Love and Light Club. I loved it. I would do anything to be able to just feel good. So this allows us to explore this wing that we said that in this power of love, the sense of warmth, the sense of expansion, this deep feeling of warm, softer connection that lets you be at ease, allows you to rest into yourself, allows you to have a much stronger foundation of I am. That most issues, when I would hear people come and sit on my couch, they address them as love issues. That they met and there was this wonderful expansion and this sense of connection, and this person that they were feeling was going to be a certain way for them, or that they were going to reform them into the person they always wanted. That these connections here had much more to do with the contracts or the qualities of what is real, which we find in the truth. So one of my big first discoveries is that, for the most part, that if the truth line didn't go the way we expected it to, what did we do? We cut off the space. We cut off the warmth, the love, the light, the connections, or we brought it up about 5 notches so that when we experience it, it doesn't feel real because it doesn't feel grounded. It's an overlay. So that when we come to the power of truth, truth is marked in your integrity. The strength of you able to be congruent and connected with the strength of who you are. We measure your integrity by your ability to keep your word. And if you missed out, you agreed to do something and it wasn't going to happen because you missed it out or whatever it was, that there's a follow-up that happens. And I come and say, I really got that I went unconscious here. And I want to say, sorry, I want to clean it up. I want to come back to the integrity. There was a certain point for me that I realized that my spiritual power, how much when I set forward an intention of compassion or connection, how much energy it actually could expand into the space, how deeply I could hold consistently that level of connection, vibration, compassion in the space itself. I had to have this level of integrity. It became really obvious to me that probably my bigger integrity issues was that I wasn't true to myself more than someone else saying something and then not coming through. The truth piece became a question of, can you be true to yourself? What is this level of deep integrity of knowing? And what is it in the body? I think for some of us, it has taken us lifetimes to grow into this, just as it may take us lifetimes to feel conscious in a large, expanded field of love. So that when this got interpreted to where we often look in love, in relationships, it would move hot and cold, hot and cold, hot and cold. That the coldness would make us sense that we had lost our truth. We lost some part of our nature. And so that we would have to penetrate into that place inside ourselves that lived in fear, that lived in anger, that lived in contempt or frustration. And we'd have to penetrate it with this warm energetic, right? We had to bring love to the places that were closed. What were we seeking for? Not to get rid of anything. That would be the coward's way of doing it. But to penetrate into the power of our own delusions and make it right. My mother had a little saying when I was a kid. She said that some of the best preachers were reformed alcoholics because they so deeply believed in the power of their own being saved that they were absolute holy rollers, if you will, to be out there and stay on their job to save souls. We looked in a downtown restaurant, so we got to meet a lot of different people along the way. So we have truth and love here. We acknowledge the love as a space, expansive, warm, holding an element of essence of life itself in the space, that we can breathe it and feel this warmth and this penetration. We call it healing forces. We look at it as a luminous light. It's all in the space. That the aspect of our truth allows us to be real, allows us to know our own nature, that within the power of the truth, we are in evolution, unveiling, opening, and releasing through various cycles. So we have a subjective truth. Subjective truth says, this is true for me in this moment. Subjective truth. Then we have an absolute truth, which says that for all time, it is. Absolute truth doesn't change. Subjective truth is more a relationship to maybe that objectivity, and also a place where It is your personal soul print into the world. That's why it is so important to find your expression, however you do, and to allow that level of expression to be part of your world. It doesn't mean you have to set up shop and go do something or make something happen. It's more, again, this personal relationship to self that allows you to rest into and feel comfortable in that depth of who you are. A lifetime work. So we have these two wings, truth and love. That I looked at love as the space. I looked at truth as more of a contract or agreement that I would have in the universe. That the, shall we say, the weakness, right? We talked about love and said, if love goes too far out, it gets confused. If it goes to a point where it's confused because things are not the way it's supposed to be, the Little Red Riding Hood story, that it's like it can go to confusion. If it goes too far over, it will flip to its opposite side, and you will find cold resentments. And that when you hear certain people who their nature is more truthful, they're more serious, there's a more solidity about them. I felt when I was talking to a truth person, they would rather be in the truth than be happy. When I'm with a love person, they'd rather be happy than necessarily having to deal with the truth. Again, these are extremes. We look for them to come together. In the place that I found with the sense of truths, that there would be sometimes issues because there would be a solidification in that sense of what you thought was true or what you thought was real. And that drawing on a principle, everyone should be like this. It can create a hardness. It can create judgment. And it's like, in that, you can still, in the power of a judgment, if you're riding on the principles of truth, you can be very, very powerful. At the same time, we don't know what it's going to do to your karma. So that when we are coming into this balance here, if we've looking to the reasons of, am I open? Am I loving? Am I warm? The agreement we made in the beginnings of the training, because again, if I'm in a closed space, my truth is going to be pretty rigid. It's going to have a kind of a pronouncement to it, shall we say, that is a little harsh or stinging or sarcastic. That the aspect of love could be absolutely absent, or it could be some kind of sticky stuff, right? We've made fun of all of these extremes. We can still, if we want to, but it's a sense of being able to recognize that that place of imbalance is because the energy is not grounded. So that this place that we come to and acknowledge the sense that you can come back to center. And we mark this again, because it was way, way hard to track this in the beginnings around the sense of where too many influences. So that we acknowledged it from open and closed. Open gave me a sense of feeling that I would be able to relax into what is. And that if I wasn't, if it was threatening some part of my nature, something that is asking me to change, something that's asking me to come to new cycle, I would need to bring that compassionate, warm love into that aspect of unease until I could accept the world that was going to come before me. This has been the stage of the last 7 years, that we have gone through very deep level of transformation and connection. We're recognizing that we have to find a new way to be in our own nature. That if we're not able to do that, we risk calcification. The power of truth and love, two wings of the heart. Love is a space, warm, expansive. That the key was to ground this so that it fed and brought strength to our integrity. That the power of integrity, the powers of the truth, allowed me to rest with what is and to draw a strength from it. To be able to recognize that for many of you that have been here, you've had to go through massive dissolution process where the world that you were in, or the one that was completing itself, everything was dissolving around and you were like in that level of suspension. So that the question of what was the next step, what is the truth, right? When we would be looking over here for the sequences of our life, what do we do? How do we respond? That basically had, shall we say, a remodeling. And that remodeling asked us to recognize what we had built our sense of self on from earlier times and what it would mean now to build our sense of self on our spiritual nature. And that's my sense of where I greet you today. In this awakening of a spiritual nature in you that does not necessarily always have words, has expressions. Then in the group work that we're in right now, we're working to keep bringing that warm, expansive space into any part of our nature that needs healing. Can we stay open, spacious, warm in situations that are basically not what we want them to be? Or when we look to something and recognizing that it may feel threatening or it's falling apart, can we maintain that space of expansion and warmth? Well, what I notice for me is that level of expansion and warmth does remain. Love doesn't disappear. But my ability to be present with that does. So that the love is here. That's not called unconditional. My ability to come into this would mean that I am true to myself, that I'm capable of speaking my experiences, that I have a depth of expression and connection. And so I'm going to give this to you. Take a breath and get a sense of your love wing, that feeling of expansion, warmth, openness. Let it ground so it's real to you. That it isn't as soon as something goes in a way that you didn't expect that you close it down. Practice keeping this wing strong so that the spaciousness, that bigger awareness, that within that, when they speak of it as the strongest healing force there is, you begin to sense a miraculous nature of creation itself. Then we come to the other side, to your truth wing. You can tell in your body pretty close to immediately if you trust yourself deeply. because you settle in to your own nature. That in your truth wing, this is the ability for you to recognize what's important here. What do you reach into? How do you gather your strength? What is it in your nature that you express that generates happiness, right? So they fly together. Truth and love, two wings of the heart. So we developed and played with these different pieces in the beginning. We had to walk around with love is a space. Love is a space. It didn't, love is a space. It became more and more obvious as we would be working with us that this strength, that when I came into what I would call love, because I didn't know what it was actually, was expansive. It lived outside of content. That what allowed it in my being was more of a filtering process in my own nature that allowed it to be. And that sense of knowing when you're true to yourself and knowing when you're compromising. And probably most importantly, knowing to what degree can you compromise in your nature before you lose your own sense of spaciousness, meaning we're back to unworthy, we're back to not feeling that we deserve love, we're back to a closed energetic. I think that for me, what has been beautiful is being able, as I said, we go through these teachings in many different levels, that there's a certain understanding. I used to embrace some of my truth people when they come to me because they were blunt and direct, and this is how it was, and this is what we're doing. And I would be getting my feelings hurt. It's like, how come you talk to me like that? You know, it's like, and it's like, and it wasn't their issue. They didn't come to be nice. They came to be real and to be true. And so that I was able to put it in a perspective that said, if I can just stand here and let them be themselves without having to take this as if they are taking away, there was a level of connection and truth and loyalty that built stronger than ever. I have some of my truth friends that love poking fun at love people. They're just in their bubble. They just want to feel good. They're just, going off into this little world and not paying attention to anything. And it's like, that may or may not be true. So that how do we allow that? I wondered with the person who was judging love, if they got enough of it themselves, or was it a craving that they didn't know yet how to trust? So we are going to play our numbers game here. 1, 2, 3. And then we're going to talk about it, get a sense of it, how it works. So my number ones, I want you to concentrate on spaciousness. Spaciousness. And within the spaciousness, I want you to concentrate in, if you have the bandwidth for it, around the essence in the space. Every life force carries a certain code or a message, all based on certain level of vibrations and connections. That when we are penetrating into the essence of something, there's a communion and a communication that happens. And a life force is shared that is very, very dynamic. I'll give you a simple, little funny kind of example. Errol and I went off to a friend's house to get our hair cut, and she had a tree that she didn't know quite what to do with. It was a ficus tree, and so she had kind of thrown it out on the lanai, and it was dying, and its roots were more barren. And Errol saw it, and oh goodness, he said, "Can I have that tree?" Sure. He brought it home. He planted it up on the hillside. He watered it. He nurtured it. And I swear, every time he walked by, this little tree would start just ever so slightly wiggling its little leaves, celebrating Errol, just like animals when they are in love with you, your little kitties and their doggies, they see you and they get so excited that you're here. And it's like, what is it that communicates? They have lots of scientific kinds of studies now verifying basically the same information, that there is a response and a level of communion connection in the sense that I'm calling essence, that when Errol would come, his love for that tree, his love for the hillside, everything celebrates that. So my number ones, I want you to really take a look at that sense of space and spaciousness and concentrate on the essence. I was reading a book by Deepak Chopra, and he was talking about that aspect that each person has their code or their essence, their individual frequency vibrational element that makes them, makes you, you. And I wondered, could I see it? So we were at this fair and I was reading a book, Deepak Chopra book, and I just started looking to see if I could sense, is there some kind of subtle something that I could sense? And I noticed that's where my attention would go to. I was looking at this man, he was carrying a child on his shoulders, and it was like, and up above, there was just this amazing feeling of illumination. I also noticed, because I found all sorts of them as they were wandering around the fair, that when I started penetrating into it, that person looked at me quite immediately, as if I was recognized as seeing. I could tell by the feeling that would come back to me. If this was a private affair given to this person, would you please get out of my space? Don't even look. Or if there was a certain level of acknowledgement, a sense of smile that goes, I recognize the strength of your love and your life force. My number twos. Light. I want you to concentrate on luminosity. We've got this level of essence. It vibrates. It becomes luminosity. It becomes light. It carries information. It carries more than we could even understand within the little pin of the needle kind of connection. Take a breath, number twos, and feel your own luminosity. Just like if you were a one, you would be feeling your own essence. Now, for this to have this unity for focus, we have to have truth and love. If light is not grounded, it doesn't illuminate. Luminous light, when we step into the room, makes us feel safe. My auntie had luminous light. She's probably one of the few love people that I recognized from growing up. You always knew that she would have a certain warmth for you when you walked in the door. There was a certain kind of reaching out that wanted me to feel special. I got a lot of ice cream. That was her way of saying, you are special. right? In that level of acknowledging that level of warmth and spacious connections between the two of us. In the power of luminosity, I could sense her. I could sense her expansion. There are teachers that I have had the honor to sit with, where their luminosity would penetrate the room so profoundly that everything within the space became obviously wise. And all of us there became grateful. I remember being with Pierre Vilayet at one moment, looking to him, and it was almost like his luminosity took away the form. It's like he was more light than form in that moment. Number 3, sound. The power of the word. This vibrational quality that brings all things into form. Remember, wave and particle, wave and particle. It brings all things into form. The power of the word. So that as you are here feeling that, and this leans you a little more over here in the sense that the truth gives you that clarity of connection, of why we are here. And the spaciousness allows it to expand and to open and to become more rich, more aligned. So when I started in our talk here today, I told you we would start in the beginning and we'll track it all the way to where we're standing now. To me, what I'm giving you here in your 1, 2, 3 is sacred. It's a little abstract. If you weren't listening in a penetrative way, it might just go over your head. That was great, Nancy. I'll be light today, that kind of thing. It's like it causes us to allow the strength of our soul to speak. And that we can sit here today and acknowledge that our heart and our soul have a voice, that we can move more gently towards this deeper, more sacred part of our nature, that we can be in the heart's dimension. So I celebrate that with you. I celebrate the part of you that knows that this sense of luminosity, this deep power of the word that brings all form into being, this spacious level of connection, of essence, that you can be within this consciously now, maybe in a way that you never were capable of doing. So when we said that there are these downloads into the universe that bring change, some people speak of them as planets in the sky, vibrational influences coming from various kinds of alchemies. We're standing in this now, today, 2 wings of the heart, to embrace, as these are balanced and in alignment, a depth of consciousness and connection that we will seed throughout the entire universe. That's what's coming down in the spring. So I appreciate your time, your attention, your careful listening. I encourage you to take this for a walk. A lot of times I have to kind of piece it back together in various ways that allow the equation to get even stronger. And I appreciate that you're willing to be here to do the work, to express these bigger pieces of yourself and find out in your dynamic configuration what you have come here to give and what you have come to receive. And we can feel the blessings of these gifts in every moment. So thank you. Appreciate your time, and see you next week.
Thank you, Yancy. Love you.
Love you. Aloha.
Aloha.